Welcome back to the Unstuck movement. True testimonies of breakthrough. This podcast is to help you break the chains that are holding you back in your life, in your business. I am your host, Rob Z. Today, somewhat of a special episode. I usually only have one guest on. It's awesome to have two on here. We have Bobby L.O.V.E and Stephen Fantel here talking about the L.O.V.E Pod. And this is fascinating to me. Bobby, you and I connected, I think, a month ago. Was the first that I heard about this. I'm not even going to try to explain any of it. I'll let you guys, because you're the experts, go for it. What is the L.O.V.E Pod?
Well, you can see one actually right behind Stephen on his background that he's got up, but just to show you visually, this right here is what is a L.O.V.E Pod. And it does a lot actually, but I'd say three pretty important things. The first is remote connectivity. So this device will connect to every single 4G tower, depending on which tower is providing you with the best signal. If you've ever been in a scenario where you're at somebody's house and you've got the big three carriers represented here in the United States, and only one of them is getting a signal, this device will connect to that signal. It also works through assisted satellite. We do have a satellite in the sky, and it is more of a coordinator of the devices. And the third is what we are currently growing and expanding upon, which is our own internal mesh network. So every time one of these devices gets turned on, it becomes another node in our network. And that provides overall connectivity for everybody else. It makes the network run faster, and you get faster speeds and all of that. And we are currently building that out so that we can eventually get to where we are running and operating through our own internal meshed L.O.V.E network. Beyond that, the device has a built-in VPN, and it also has a dual blockchain, which the first blockchain is based off of Bitcoin's algorithm. The second is our own internal mesh network, or excuse me, cube chain blockchain encryption for it. Just sorry, I'm stumbling over my words, but in essence, it's extremely safe and secure. The last is that when you're connected to this, your information is really traveling down a sovereign tribe's jurisdiction. And what that really ultimately means for anybody is that your information is never shared and it's never sold.
When you say it's never shared and never sold because it's through a sovereign, explain what that means a little bit. How is that possible? Because I think me first hearing about this, anybody first hearing about this, that's like, what does that mean? How is it not sold? What is happening that's causing that to happen?
I'll let Stephen take that one.
Thank you. Okay, so the closest analogy I could give you is if the Vatican decided that they were going to put out a network and you were connecting to their network, then the jurisdiction, i.e. the laws that it's under and who they have to answer to, would be simply the government of the Vatican. In this case, the Okanagan Indian Confederacy is a unceded tribe. If you're ceded, you've given up your sovereignty to a corporate government because you're getting checks or you're getting whatever other benefits. They never did this. They're based out of Penticton, Canada. And so they are the one who operates the actual data network. So when I connect my phone, my computer, my tablet, Alexa, TV, whatever it is, through this device, I am working on a data tunnel that is under their jurisdiction. So they're not answering to the same regulatory agencies, for example, as any corporation that's based in America, right? So they're not required for whatever reasons to keep everybody's data and to turn that over to other regulatory agencies. They can be asked to turn over somebody's data through a tribal ombudsman or court. You know, they're a sovereign territory more than a nation, just because they're just a small band of indigenous people, but they have rights under the UN Declaration of Indigenous Rights for Peoples. it's just a completely different system, which is why you're allowed to be as private as you are. And part of it is also culturally, they don't believe that we should all essentially be data cows to be milked.
How did that end up happening?
So that's a really good story. So the way that these came into existence to begin with is one of the chiefs of the Okanagan Indian Confederacy. He's really a brilliant technologist, and he was unbelievably tired of there never being decent connectivity on the reservations. It took 12 years to get all of this built, tested, and so that's what this was originally built for. And in order to help support bringing connectivity to the reservations that are still underserved in Canada, the United States, the Amazon, other areas, they set up a regular company to distribute it to people who could actually initially afford the devices. So every purchase of one of these devices is also supporting indigenous communities. So that's what it was built for. That was its whole reason for being created, is to provide that. And as part of that, they didn't want the tribes people's information and data to be sold. Originally, nobody but the tribes was supposed to be able to get this. It's its own private intranet, right? So it was built to serve tribal communities, and now it's available for everybody, because all of us actually might like to be a bit more private, not have our data sold, not be tracked in every single thing we do, not because we're doing anything wrong, but simply because of the way it's being used and how much it's worth, and my God, all the spam we get and phone calls we get and everything else.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. Everybody, nobody's happy about our privacy being shared, but we also feel like there's no other option if we want to have internet, right? So it's like, it kind of take the gift with the curse that comes along with it, right?
I think that's what's really key about this, is that it's about providing options. The world we live in today is, to me, the equivalent of walking out to my mailbox, getting my mail, and every single piece of it has been opened and clearly rifled through. Right. And for many, many years, Stephen and I have been on this path to really find a way to give a different option. Right. This isn't about like, well, let's take down the system. I like where I live. I like paying my taxes to be safe and secure. But it's about running something parallel that just offers a different choice, so that your information isn't just being utilized in ways that you don't understand and have no idea who's got it and what they're doing with it.
Right. Well, and it goes far beyond that, because there's data theft. It's not just theft of your data, but that can include your social security numbers. It can use your passwords. When I connect through this device, I'm also protected from viruses and malware and being hacked, so people aren't getting into my phone. Like, if I go to the coffee shop, I'm not going to use public Wi-Fi, because on my phone,
you can take that with you to the coffee shop.
Oh yeah, look, this just fits in my pocket. I take it to the airport. My wife, she just puts it in her purse anywhere she goes. This way, if she ever breaks down and she can't connect, because sometimes we have places around Denver where we live where Verizon or AT&T, they just don't have cell service, right? Your phone goes to SOS. Well, this device also connects to the emergency bands, to the SOS bands. So I can connect through and make a phone call from WhatsApp, Signal, Telegram, any voice over IP, post on Facebook, help, here's where I am from my phone. We've got people all over North Carolina. They're the only ones for a few weeks who had connectivity after the hurricanes up in Asheville and other locations. So that's really the two things the device does. It keeps you private and safe, because it also protects you from viruses, malware, being hacked. But it's also a device that is the most likely to connect, because you got, as Bobby indicated, 4G, emergency band, satellite access, and the mesh network. But unlike satellite only, because most of us don't need satellite most of the time, only
Mm-hmm.
barely, it means that the cost for the data each month can be far less expensive than satellite only. And you can use every app that's on your phone, because most satellite phones don't let you run apps. They just let you text or make a phone call, and that's it.
So let's talk about that, 'cause I think that's important. If somebody's watching this right now, they're thinking like this thing's probably super expensive. So what does it cost to have a Love Pod like in your house as your internet?
Yeah, really inexpensive cost right now. $199 for the device, and that is something that will be going up in the next month or two, probably beginning of the year, but we'll see. Even then, it's going to jump up to $249. So it's not like we're asking for some of the other satellite-based providers out there. That's rather expensive
That's a one-time fee.
and that's one
Right.
time, right? And then monthly, you can be as low as 28 for 10 gigabytes here in the US, $48 for well, I am always a little hesitant to call it unlimited. There's 60 gigs of premium, and then after that, it would go down to where you're connecting into the emergency SOS band. But we are also getting right. Well, Stephen, do we want to talk about the additional package that's going to be coming out pretty soon?
Probably not just yet, because we're still
Wait.
testing it with bigger satellite. But here's one thing that's really important. And a lot of people use our device this way. You can pay nothing every month and just have a balance on hand in the app for when an actual emergency comes. And then this becomes your emergency communication device. So if you don't, so there's no contract, there's no required monthly fee. For $28, you can get 10 gigabytes in the US, Europe, Canada, and that can sit there as an emergency when you need it, or $48 for basically unlimited, but in the United States, that's in the United States. Canada, Mexico, Europe, Asia packages are a little bit more expensive. But
so,
for the most part, you can. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say you're running off of this right now in your house, right?
Yes.
And it like, so as far as your house, you got iPads, you got tablets, you got phones, you got Roku TVs. You obviously we're live streaming right now. It's doing all those things.
Right. Well, I have 2 pods in my house. So my wife has one for her. You can connect up to 9 devices simultaneously to this. Since I have a teenager who still lives here, I couldn't really run my whole house between her Alexa, her phone, her laptop, her desktop, her, whatever, and then all of her friends who show up. Right. So we have 2 pods at our house, and that pretty much handles everything, including a Wi-Fi connection to monitor solar panel production.
And having the 2 pods makes it stronger too, because they're feeding off of each other. Am I right?
Yes. They don't have to overlap, but the more that you have in any, not just area, but overall, it is providing more bandwidth to the whole entire spectrum that it runs on. They have their own frequency, let's call it, just to make it simple for people to understand. Right? Verizon has their own, AT&T, everybody has their own bandwidth that they're working off of, and L.O.V.E has its own as well. And
so
every one of these, let me just add this real quick, because Bobby touched on it. Every one of these is basically a mini satellite. It's like a tower. It does both broadcasting and receiving. So these are nodes in the network that are building out to support the network as a whole. Instead of putting up brand new towers, we just get more pods out there, and that strengthens the signal for all the other users in the network.
And so if you have 2 in your house, do you obviously clearly buy 2 devices? Do you pay like 2 fees per month then?
Yeah, so one of them I pay just $28 for 10 gigabytes, and I pretty much, if I'm watching TV, I don't use it because that uses up a lot of gig. So I don't really use it for my television, but anytime I want to be private, checking email when I'm traveling, whereas my wife has the unlimited, and she does use 180, 150 gigabytes between her and my daughter. I'm only using 8-9 gigabytes a month because I'm only using it for really secure communications for the most part in my phone, and I don't sit and watch Netflix on my phone.
It's amazing. So how is it possible that you're able to create? Because I mean, I don't know how any of this stuff works, or like there's all these different signals we can be picking up. How is it possible that when this was designed under the sovereign, what was it called? The
Okanagan.
Okanagan. Yeah. How are they allowed to do that? Is this something that people are allowed to do and nobody's really doing it, or how does that happen?
Okay, so a few things. One, they do purchase as a nation. They have a nation account. They do purchase data from AT&T, T-Mobile in Canada, Bell and Rogers. They have access also to the emergency bands as a nation. So, but they are paying. Like if you go look, AT&T runs the FirstNet emergency responder network. If you want, you can actually sign up at their website and pay for that.
Okay.
That's a service. So they have satellite data that's available. They have all the main networks that are available, and they have the emergency bands that are available. And because of that, it's one humongous pool. So every one of these pods basically is allowed to go on that network the same way every phone that's on Verizon can get on the Verizon network across the country.
The device actually supports just about every band in the world. So one of the things I was going to show you here is say you're going to go travel to a country, right? And it's a country that we have data packages in, which I don't know if you can see, but we've got data packages in Canada, Mexico, most of Asia, not China, because it's China, but Europe, and we are continuing to grow that list as we go. But everything that you're going to do for your device is all going to be managed through the app, where you can check like how much data have I used? When is my package expiring? This is also where you renew every package. And when you initially set the device up, on the back is this unique barcode that you will scan, which then attaches the device to your login on whatever device, not whatever device, but it locks it for security purposes. So that makes it very hard, once again, if somebody's trying to hack or get in and utilize it in a way. It's just another layer of protection for our users.
It's amazing. I mean, it's really just like it's like when I first heard about it, Bobby, and you were telling me, I'm like, this is too good to be true. It's like so next level. It's hard to believe. So I'm getting one for myself just so I can. I was telling my dad about it, and he's like, I don't get it. I was trying to explain to him. He's like, I don't understand. And I was like, well, I'll get it, and then we can check it out once you get it. So how do you? I mean,
this is something I hear very often. And I don't want people to be incredulous. So everybody should know now that on your regular iPhone, right, if it goes to SOS and it's a true emergency, you can send a message through their SOS network, which is satellite, right? Our phones already do this. It's just you're not allowed to use it. If you want satellite all the time, you got to go to HughesNet, or you got to go to Starlink, or you've got to go to a satellite company, right? So this is just a hybrid system. That's what it says behind me. It's a hybrid system. It says, look, most of the time we don't need satellite. We've got 4G. We've got the emergency bands. They are still active in emergency situations for the most part. So why don't we put it together so that it can be a lot less expensive, and you simply have the very best capacity to get a connection when you need a connection, if it's an emergency, or just every day if you want to use it for everyday purposes, which a lot of people do. And again, a lot of people they simply have the device on that app Bobby was showing you. There's a little place to put a balance, and they put $28 in there, and then maybe they pay nothing for 4 months, and then their car breaks down. and they don't have receptivity. They can go on their app, use that $28 without having to go online. It's already in their system. It'll talk to our satellite system, and it will load up 10 gigabytes. And guess what? Now you can communicate. Or run your whole house off it, right? We've got a good friend who has multiple TVs. He's always got them all on. He used to pay $100 and something a month for like Comcast. Now he's paying $48 a month. He's able to do everything that he needs to do off of this one little device. And because he lives alone, when he leaves the house, he can take his internet with him.
Yeah, I love that. You can take your internet with you. It's such a cool concept, because if you're like at an airport, right, and you sign onto the internet there, you're leaving yourself super vulnerable to anybody hacking into your stuff anywhere you go, right? So the fact that you have your own private internet anywhere you go, and other people aren't allowed. Can other people see it? Or they bring up their Wi-Fi, they can see your connection? Yeah.
Dude, that's one of the funnest things of all is, you go to a coffee shop and then someone comes and sits down and they're looking for Wi-Fi on their phone, and then you hear, "What is love?" I don't know. I get a kick out of it every time I hear someone asking around me in public, "What is love?"
Baby, don't hurt me. That needs to be your theme song for it. So right now we got to jump into a sponsor spot real quick for 60 seconds. When we come back, though, I want to know, Stephen, how did you end up getting involved in this? Because it seems like a wild scenario for you to get connected to the to the reservation and how all of this transpired. So let's talk about that in a minute. Are you struggling to make consistent, valuable content for yourself? Do you want to have an efficient and effective way to create content that attracts the people that you want to connect with in life, the people you want to build relationships with in business? Do you want to be the go-to authority at what you do, at what you're great at? Would it be helpful for you if you had a platform that connects you to incredible people in your industry? The kind of platform that gets you leads and lands you clients without you having to beat down anybody's door or blow up anybody's inbox. Whether you're already creating content or you're desiring to start and it's something that's been kind of burning inside of you for a while, I urge you and encourage you to check out the Pro Podcaster Academy. Get started right now. Join the waitlist at robzwentz.com.
Hi, my name is Jose Escobar, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Connected Leaders Academy. We're a growing tribe, a community of entrepreneurs all over the world globally. If you're an entrepreneur and you're looking to grow personally and professionally, scale your influence, develop your skill sets, move the needle in your business, more clients, more money, more profit, the bottom line, and of course, grow your circle and your network like never before, join the Connected Leaders Academy today. Check me out on Instagram and on Facebook, the @ JASCO25. We look forward to having you join us. Take care.
So how did this all come to be, Stephen, that you ended up being involved in this?
Well, this is a bit of a sad story, actually. So I was working with a true genius person for about 10 years and running a company called OriCloud, which built really amazing next generation blockchains, not for cryptocurrencies, but for things like supply chain and for security purposes and things of that nature. And the chief of the Okanagan was coming to see me about utilizing our technology within the L.O.V.E platform. And a few days before he got here, the genius from OriCloud, Michael Short, died. He got run over by his own moving truck, of all things, believe it or not. Yeah, and I mean, Michael designed MTV. He was in his 60s. He built the Fox digital broadcasting system. When Bill Gates' Smart House didn't work originally, he's the one who went in and fixed it. He had Emmy Awards for his work with the Rolling Stones and Tina Turner and U2 and you name it. So that system was really amazing, and it focused on digital rights, on ownership of our intellectual property and our data, and being able to actually register it into a blockchain. And then be able to issue out those rights under different legal theories, whether it's, fair use rights, one-day rights, etc., which was very important in a lot of the peace work that we've done for the last 20 years. So when Michael died, I I'm not a computer programmer. So Chief was looking, the chief of the Okanagan, Chief Anyin, it was over 2.5 million lines of proprietary code that had been written. And I was just kind of left with, I can't support this. I'm not the tech person. So the chief asked me if I would help with the launch of what L.O.V.E was doing. I knew what their purpose was and where they were coming out, because we had been talking for a month and a half about integrating our blockchain technology into the whole L.O.V.E platform, which is a lot more than this device. We don't need to get into that. That will come, but the devices are critical because they are the on-ramps that build this and sustain a network of its own. Right? Like eventually, when there's enough pods, even if the regular internet went down, L.O.V.E has its own internet. It is, it's its own system. Like a CB is a different system than the internet system, right? This has its own capacity. And there's a lot more that goes onto it. But the first and foremost thing you need is the infrastructure that allows that network to be up and running. Right now, we look at them as towers, right? The 4G and the 5G towers that are out there, or the satellites for satellite systems. This is a hybrid network, and we're utilizing those things initially, but our infrastructure is actually these themselves. These are the nodes in the network. I know I've said that, but I'm going to keep repeating that because that's what's really new and unique about this.
Kind of like how blockchain, like each individual user is what powers the blockchain and keeps it. But
yes,
my very
good analogy.
Limited understanding of it, like each person is the owner of it, and so you need them connected together. And the more connectivity there is, the stronger it is. Am I getting that right?
Yes, in a sense. That's a good analogy for probably most people. I mean, if you're a super techie, you need to talk to Chief Anyin. But that's a good way to explain it to people. Although we don't need to use consensus and miners and things of that nature, we're simply using blockchain to break things up into bits and then put them back together, basically to encrypt them across the communication spectrum. And then, unlike Meta or anybody else out there, we're not taking that data and storing it and then selling it or even keeping it. Mm-hmm. We don't have your data. We're not tracking you. We don't know what you bought. We don't care what you bought, right? You should be able to just communicate and do what you want to do without being molested by everybody who's buying data, whether it's political parties or Walmart.
What's like the EMF frequency coming off? For you to carry it in your pocket and stuff like that. Is it like a cell phone?
Way less. Go ahead, Bobby.
Yeah. So what's really unique about the device is that if you were to run, like, you can get an EMF app on your phone, and we've tested it, and this puts out an EMF rating of just a little over 73, which is just a little bit more energy than what actually comes from the Earth. A similar device like a Ryoko or any of those kind of hotspot that you pick up from a standard carrier, you're going to be in that 400 to 500 EMF range. And then if like a better example is like your phone puts out, like 11 to 1200, depending on the device. So it's just a very, very, very low frequency that it puts out. And technically, it's actually called a L.O.V.E baby pod. It's what it says it on the back. You'll also notice that it says inspired by tribes on the back here. Oh, I forgot where I was going with that.
Well, it's a baby pod.
It's so safe that you could put it next to a baby.
That's why it's called the baby pod, because it's safe enough for the baby.
Right. Not because it's so small, but because it literally, if you go out with an EMF reader and just go in nature, you're going to get probably a regular reading of 72 or something. We do have a YouTube channel where there's a number of EMF rating videos that shows you exactly that this is just a tiny hair above nature, right? So it comes out to like 400 and something or 720 whatever, no, 4, just above. There's different ways of reading EMFs depending on what kind of reader you're utilizing. So it basically has almost no EMF output, essentially.
As far as the charging goes, like what, to just plug it into the wall like anything else to charge it? How long does the charge last? That sort of thing.
So it takes about 45 minutes to charge. It's a USB-C. It pops right into the top of the device right there. Well, I got a background, so there you can see it. And it takes about 45 minutes to charge, and then it will be good for 13 hours. And it uses very, very, very little power at all.
And if you're using it like at home, you just leave it plugged in, I would assume.
You can. I've got one guy, he has a cabin up in Canada, but he lives in New York. And he's got 8 cameras connected to the pod. And he just leaves it plugged in, and this is how he remotely can see what's going on at his cabin when he's not there. And interestingly, it takes about 6 gigabytes a month. So he buys the smallest Canadian package each month, which is 10 gigabytes for about $28. And this way he can always be seeing what's happening at his cabin.
Cool. So like the thing that, what I was hearing about before I met you, Bobby, was Starlink. I was going to get Starlink, and I'm curious, like, how does BabyPod compare to Starlink and what Elon Musk is doing with that?
So, and it's not like a knock on Starlink necessarily, but the challenge with Starlink is, and let's just really take like an emergency scenario, because that's been coming up quite a bit lately. So an emergency scenario, the challenge with Starlink is that you're going to have a strong enough power source to be able to get power to their device. It's also not really designed around mobility. So if there was an emergency situation, that means that you're going to have a generator to be able to get power. The other challenge, well, maybe not a challenge, but the other reality is just the expense. If you're getting any kind of a package with them that you're going to get a good enough signal and strong enough to really utilize, you're going to be spending, upwards over $100, even as high as $150, for that connection. So it really doesn't make it as affordable. And when you can basically get this device, and then what Stephen was referencing before is that in our app, you can go in under a balance. So you can just preload $28 and just have that sitting there. And then when you're ready to utilize it, in case, let's just say an emergency is coming in, so you could just go in under shop, and then you could just quickly purchase the $28 USA 10 gigabyte package and just have that ready to go when something is happening. Or in some scenarios, I don't know about you, but how many of us have had our internet go out, right? And then you're without internet for, 3, 4, 5 days, or, somewhere around that amount. For individuals, you've got, like, we're doing this show right now. If you didn't have internet, well, you couldn't do the show. But if you had one of these as a backup when you really needed it, because there is no monthly contract. That's another thing to point out if it hasn't been made clear. We have some people that travel for business 3 to 6 months out of the year. They just have these specifically for when they're traveling, but they may go 2 months where they're doing that. Then they're not going to travel for another 2 months. So they just use it when they need it.
Right. You can pay right on the spot to get the internet kick. So you can pay right on the spot. It's not working. There's no internet. You pay the $28, automatically it's connected and you're good.
Well, if you can't get internet, you have to have the $28 balance already in your app. Right. So you go out and you get it. But let me give you one other scenario here that's really great. So, like, a lot of us do travel. We got friends we go to see in Spain for a couple weeks every year, or family. And I don't think I could take my Starlink with me to Europe. Okay. But I can take this and turn off my cellular, so I'm not getting charged $10 a day travel pass, and my wife getting charged $10 a day travel pass, right? So for even 10 days, we're paying $200 for our phone to work, whereas for $28, I can get a 10 gigabyte European package, And while we're visiting our friends in Spain, we can get internet, we can make voice calls, we can use WhatsApp, Signal, whatever is your app of fancy. Go on Facebook. It doesn't use up that much data at all. So just on one trip, we're saving $150 in otherwise travel pass charges from our provider. And I guess the point here is that just shows you the difference in portability between this little device and Starlink. But Starlink's going to be a little bit stronger, and you can, when you're in a satellite-only location, but most of us aren't in satellite-only locations most of the time. At my house, I don't need to go to satellite. If I go to Moab, Utah, then this goes on satellite, and it does run a little bit slower.
And you don't need to like choose satellite. It just goes to it.
That's right. One of the nice things Bobby could show you in the app is you can go in there and there's a button for optimizing the network. So if you've moved from one location to another, maybe you've lost the strongest signal, and then you can actually go into the device or double reboot it. That's a signal that tells it to now rebuild the network and choose whatever is the strongest signal available to you, whether it's 4G, emergency band, satellite, or the L.O.V.E mesh network, which has been coming online. We've been, both Bobby and I, at times, I'll look at the pod. You'll see I've got a green, well, you can't really see because this silly background. There's a green light there. That means I'm connected to 4G right now, right? The cheapest way to get connectivity. But sometimes it'll turn red and my speed goes way up. When it's red and I'm getting good internet, it means that I'm on the L.O.V.E network alone. I'm on the mesh network. It's that stronger at that particular time. And that just depends on how many people have their pods on and are using them at any given moment.
How many are out there? How many are like in the US right now?
There's about 600 in the US and 125 to 130 in Canada.
Wow. So it's
we've
that
only
new.
been
It's
making
like
them. Right. July is when we started shipping them. And we let everybody know who was buying them that you're going to be kind of part of our beta test because we don't know what we don't know. This is really neat. On there's a YouTube channel called Adventures of Pod. And there's a video there. Our first big test was this race across America. And in the race across America, these guys on bicycles rode from San Diego all the way to New Jersey, to the boardwalk. This two-person team broke the world record because they had L.O.V.E pods. So across the Navajo lands, up over the mountains here in Colorado, as well as the Appalachians, theirs was the only team that actually had internet. And so there's a nice interview. It's about 20 minutes long, where they will explain to you, we couldn't have done this. So we've been testing, we've been improving the system. It's quite reliable right now. And frankly, everybody should have one for just an emergency, if nothing else. You know, I mean, it's been a lifesaver for people in North Carolina, especially around the Asheville area, where the mudslides just took out all the towers.
So it's like, as time goes on, will this be like, you'll see different products like this? Is this something that's going to like start to happen? That there's going to be platforms like this that are connecting to all the different networks? Is that something that's going to be coming down the pipe?
Your guess is as good as mine. Everybody else is either focused on satellite or just on regular networks, right? You've got other type of hotspot devices. Some of them will connect to multiple bands, others won't. What we haven't seen anyone else out there doing is saying, we protect your privacy and we respect you as beings. So we're not adding that into our bottom line or making that part of our business plan, is to take your data and sell it, which a lot of the providers that you see out there, they're quite cheap. How are they doing that? Because they're selling the data on the back end, and that's where they can make money. They can basically give you the device, because the more you use it, the more data they get. And our data is unbelievably valuable these days. It's crazy what it's worth. I don't understand why it's worth what people are paying for it. I really don't.
So, okay, we're coming to the end of this episode. This has been really interesting. I've been excited for this myself just because I wanted to learn more. Bobby, is it just a coincidence that your last name's Love and it's the Love Pod? That's when I met you, I was like, oh, he probably owns it. His last name's Love.
I know that is absolutely coincidence. It was pretty funny to me because the best way that I've described Chief to people is it's like if you took Albert Einstein and gave him a country accent, because he has lived on reservations in the South, and it's not like a strong, but it is there. And so it's almost like if Albert Einstein got up on a stage and was like, y'all, A equals MC squared. Okay, I've been doing the math on this. I'll break down my calculations for it real quick. But when I met him, he goes, you mean to tell me that your last name is really Love? And I'm like, yep. And he's like, man, that's some stars aligning right there.
Yeah, I was going to say, man, really is. So, okay, if anybody is fascinated by this, you want to test it out, get more information, right? Buy a L.O.V.E pod at loveworldconnect.com. You can buy them right there. And so, and the interesting part of this too, as far as like a money back guarantee, you guys offer that too, right? Yeah. As far as the cost of the device.
We actually right now, as we're in this building phase, we're doing 60 days. We really want people to give this a try and feel safe and secure with the purchase, knowing that, you know, if it doesn't work, then they've got all the ability to give it, you know, get a return. But it's also partially because we're that confident in the product. It really, it's not to say, look, there's not a company out there that doesn't experience a return, but we really, for the vast majority of our clientele base, they're very, very happy with the way our product works.
Yeah, as
our returns are less than 1% of people have returned them, and most of those are people over 80. I'm just saying, because they have a little bit of a problem using the app. I mean, this is simple. Right. It's got one button. You turn it on, you turn it off. You do have to know how to download an app to your phone, right, so that that's where all the control mechanisms for the thing are. Yeah. So that's the only technical part of it, and this was built to be super easy. You don't have to put Linux on your computer to be safe. You don't have to put weird VPNs on your phone that then you can't go to certain websites because the VPN says you're in some other country, right? You just connect through this. You're safe. Don't worry about it. It's for non-techies.
What's the longevity of the device itself?
It should last about 5 to 6 years, but we don't absolutely know because we haven't had it out for 5 to 6 years. But this is not like a phone where you're going to need to replace it every year or every 2 years, or there'll be a new version of it. No, the only thing that might change is the packages and how much satellite comes down. So the app will change, but the hardware, there's no reason to change out this hardware at all. So if you buy one, there's a 2-year manufacturer warranty on it to begin with. So as long as you don't, drop it in the street and it gets run over, or throw it at a wall because you're upset with something, then it can be replaced anyhow.
What's like the customer service like if somebody needs to contact somebody?
It depends what you're contacting them about. If it's for the most part, it's very good. You'll send an email to Love World Connect if you have a question about the pod, and Bobby generally gets back very quickly, or one of our other support teammates. If it's a data package issue, then they work on the other side of the world. That support system for the data side of it. So if you had a problem with your package, then it may take a day for somebody to get back to you, just because of the time zone difference.
Right. Oh, guys, it's amazing. Like I'm excited to get mine and try it out. I like the idea too that, if I try it out and I don't end up liking it, I'm out just like the $48 that I'm paying for internet. But I mean, I can tell, Stephen, from your feed, like I think the only time it's slowed down during this broadcast is I can see when my feed drops, and it happens through StreamYard at least like twice an episode, so I can see that. So it's not your feed; it was mine if it was choppy at all, which it barely was. Which is amazing to know that you're on that thing, and I'm directly plugged into my internet, and mine's still a little bit choppy. So I'm excited to try it out. If you guys want to buy one or just get information, right? You can watch videos at loveworldconnect.com. Is there anything? Yeah, what do you guys want to before we sign off? What do you want to throw in?
Background. Sorry about that. I was just going to show you the that it shows the connectivity on my Wi-Fi. So for my phone, for my computer, all of it's hooked up to this. So there's like 5 devices right now. And yeah, I can stream to you. I can watch Netflix if I want to.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Anything you guys want to say before we wrap it up?
I would just say, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you get yourself a love pod. Join our community. Be a part of what we're doing.
Amazing. Amazing.
I'm going to say thanks to you, Rob.
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you, man. Thank you so much for letting us come on and do this.
Yeah, glad to have you guys. This has been another episode of the Unstuck Movement. We'll see you next time.